This is the Heroic Voice, where I talk to comic book creators, people I've worked with, other interesting people about the history of comics, superheroes, and the current state of the comic book industry. I also discuss current and upcoming projects, current events, and any other topics my guests might be interested in talking about. So subscribe and hit the like button. Help me grow this channel and promote indie comic book creators, publishers, and other people affiliated with the comic book industry. Your comments are appreciated. Get to it and leave feedback, good, bad, and otherwise. I am your host, Dennis Mallonee, writer, publisher of the Heroic Multiverse, where we spotlight good girls, bad girls, super babes, and superheroics in a classic, kind of golden agey style. Grab some snacks and enjoy. This is the Heroic Voice. This is the July, what is today? July 13th, 2024 episode of the Heroic Voice. I'm with Terrance Griep Jr., the sinister spider baby, as he is
That's why I
known.
walked away to get a visual aid. I'm sorry, I meant to have that with me. Yes.
Oh, that's okay because I have it too.
Oh, okay.
But
Great.
this was Terrance's first cover appearance on Initiative Champions. It's actually the first, reasonably length actual G-Girl story. We did a little 6-page intro in a Flair annual. That was sort of a kind of a, kind of a G-Girl story that isn't really
Yeah.
canon. But we wanted to introduce the character, and that issue of Champions was the first actual appearance of the sensational G-Girl. Written by Terrance Griep, featuring Terrance Griep in his persona as the wrestling maven known as the Spider Baby. Um, so, Terrance, welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
It's good to have you here. We've had artists. I think you are our first writer that we've interviewed.
Wow.
So let's go through the whole bit. How did you get interested in comics? How did you get your start? What sparked all of this amazing, phenomenal literary output from wrestling guy?
uh, I didn't. You sound just like my press agent, if I had one, and my mother, and I appreciate both of those. My mother's become sort of a character, by the way. She's referred to as Spider Mommy, and she
Oh
pops up
yeah,
in all interesting ways. Yes, I fell in love with comics as a very young boy, probably before I could actually read. Um, I think I think dressing up is what really attracted me to them in the first place, superhero comics. But I'm ripe enough to remember Charlton horror comics, and I liked those very much, and I still do. I still dig those out in October and treat myself to the quality varies quite a lot. Where some of the stories are really clever and chilling, and some of them are just like eye roll inducing.
yeah. Carlton didn't operate on much of a budget back in the day.
Oh, no, it's kind of amazing. They're sort of Roger Corman of comic books, I suppose, after a fashion anyway.
I
And
liked
it's
Atomic Mouse. I thought Atomic Mouse was cool.
it's like, I think you were just saying MAUS. I'm like, ooh, oh, okay, yes, that's an important one too, but not exactly Charlton Lee. Um, and at the same time, I fell in love with pro wrestling, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I think in both instances, superhero comics specifically, and pro wrestling, larger than life characters telling stories of good versus evil in this over the top kind of way. I don't think that's a coincidence. And those two loves ran parallel. And in 2012, a publisher from Long Beach, California suggested we take that chocolate and put it in the peanut butter, and I thought, wow, that's a great idea. I always have to throw you, not really under the bus, but I have to use you as a shield because everyone assumes that I was pounding on your door going, please, please, Mr. Mallonee, please. please let me write about myself.
Didn't they meet at a convention? Wasn't it a convention back then?
We have met at conventions.
Hmm.
This particular, I no, what the heck? I did an interview and then sent you the link.
Oh,
You had arranged the interview. I'm embarrassed to admit I can't remember. It was Rick Offer.
Offenberger.
There it is. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Rick Offenberger, who's actually, interestingly enough, going to be our guest next week.
Oh, wow. Weird how this. Oh, hi, Rick, and thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
I had done an interview with him that you had arranged, I believe, and I think it was promoting G Girl, and I was mostly writing Doctor Arcane in those days. Not that it was that long ago. And I the wrestling came up, and I think that may have been when you first learned about it,
Hmm.
and sent it. I mean, literally, I sent you the link, and then 90 seconds later, there was, "Hey, how would you like to be a character in a comic book?" And of course, what comic loving kid would say no to that? So it was really cool. I still think it's kind of obviously I have a little bit of ulterior motive, but I just think it's just such a cool little meta thing. And I always wondered about my fellow heroic readers when they see the
Oh,
photo that
that photo of the
really
spider baby.
the
Yeah,
real
you
life.
got to get that up close because no one's going to be able to see it from that distance. There he
Well,
is.
probably to their credit because
Yeah.
it's not much to look at. But to see this, they go, okay, it's just some pro wrestler that these guys made up. Okay, fine. And then you see a photograph that closely resembles the wonderful artwork in there. Uh, Slightly better muscles on the artwork, I'm happy to admit, but I do the
There was also a follow-up to that story in the first issue of Sensational G Girl that you
yes,
also wrote.
friend. That was such a, and I love, I love,
Here.
I love one of the many. Oh, there it is. Yes,
Yeah, see?
I'm
There
so
he
mad.
is taking on the abominable ogre.
I love that so much.
The
I
ogre
really,
was rather pissed with you.
he was, yeah, he was. The story for the few who haven't read it, it's that well, of course, he was humiliated by being defeated by G Girl. Her
Yeah, a
first,
puny little girl just
yeah,
on her first time out,
she won
basically took
him,
down the abominable ogre.
and then Spider Baby defeats her. So in
Right.
Ogre's mind, it was like, if I kill you, Spider Baby, that will even the scales, and I will get my
Mojo.
respect.
Get your mojo back by
My
killing
mojo.
the person who defeated the person who defeated him.
That's and it's or as Ogre might put it, Ojam or Ojmaj, or he would screw it up. I'm pretty sure. I love it. There's a subsequent issue of Champions that you wrote where Ogre was causing some sort of trouble, and I think it was G Girl herself who says, "Oh, Ogre, who cares about him? Even Spider Baby can beat him." I was
Yes.
like, yeah, I'm part of the continuity. I'm, I'm waiting for Len Wein or somebody to put a little asterisk as seen in Champions number 5, the little notes that Marvel Comics used to do. We we saw it there, Pelgrim, that kind of thing. That was a lot of fun.
But that story also had the explanation of why, if you read it in detail, it's that Ogre is always influenced by somebody who holds him back.
Yeah, that's true. That's a well that's something I think heroic publishing doesn't get enough credit for, is that the characters are so they really are complex, and the motivation. I think G Girl and Spider Baby played off each other because G Girl's power source has to do with male attraction,
Yes.
and and then when you meet a wrestler who's not attracted to women, it's like, oh, okay, wasn't counting on that.
Yeah, it threw her for a loop, right?
Yeah,
And then her little brother tried to warn her about it, but she wasn't paying attention.
she was in fight mode already. I've been there myself, so maybe I was projecting onto her, and just I love the continuity of her, Billie Jean, who she used to be, and I loved her as a him, and
Billie
I
Jane.
Billie Jean, excuse me, I'm sorry, too much
Billie
Michael.
Jean is somebody in a song.
That's somebody totally different, but Billy, yes, thank you. But just how these characters, their status quos get changed, and then they have to adjust to those. It's really interesting storytelling. I loved when she was a he and just giant, and there was a lot of, I thought, Shazam, Captain Marvel there, but
Deliberately so, yeah. Uh-huh.
in an original way. It was so cool. And I'm one of your freelancers. You're my first ever publisher. You will always have a special place right here in the black space that is a normal person's heart. Um,
What other comic book work have you had? You must have done, have you done some other stuff?
oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I've written
Tell us about that, because people who are interested in you would want to know where to go to find other stuff. I mean, you've done several stories for Heroic Publishing, and you've done a lot more that have never seen print, right?
yeah,
Which
that
I'd like to get to someday. Um, but we have our limitations, just like everybody does. But where
sure.
can people find more of Terrance Griep Jr.'s work?
It's nice of you to ask. I didn't want to mention other publishers on
This is
your
about you, Terrance.
format. Okay.
This interview is about you. It's not so much about Heroic Publishing, except tangentially to what you're up to.
Okay.
It's your voice. It's the heroic voice.
Well, or heroic with an asterisk, villainous, but I don't mean to edit the editor. I have, it's funny. I just stopped wrestling after 20 years, and wrestling just ate up all of my weekends. I was always on the road. I was always wrestling in some down little town in the upper Midwest. And that meant I sacrificed convention appearances. And it's looking back at it, that was a mistake. I wish I hadn't done that. So my comic book output has dwindled in recent years. But if you go back to the 1990s, early noughts, I wrote pretty regularly for DC Comics. I was one of several writers on the Scooby Doo title,
Ah,
anthology. Technically, I mean, usually there was two stories, one longer, one shorter. I often had something in there. That was the result of that was simply I just wore out DC editorial. I was calling and pestering, and I happened to be there. It's so funny because I couldn't do it today. This older version of me couldn't do it, but back then I was just like the love child of Batman and Captain Ahab, and I was just not going to take no for an answer. And I felt bad even while I was pestering, but it's like I couldn't not do it. And so then the big Time Warner AOL deal of the late '90s happened, well, mid '90s, I guess, around then. And so then Scooby Doo came under the purview of DC Comics. And I think someone at editorial must have just said, give it to that kid in Minnesota and just shut him up because it's the same damn story every damn time. So he couldn't screw it up. And this will shut him up for a while. And if that was the strategy, it worked actually pretty well. But it also led to several Batman anthologies. I wrote one Justice League story. So the nerd in me wants to mention Superman. I've written Superman for all of 10 pages, which meant so much to me because I think he was probably the first character I fell in love with. And Green Lantern and things like that. And it's funny. That meant so much as a young kid. I just had this checklist that I was ticking off of characters and things like that. It means less. It's less of a motivation now, I guess I would say. But that was just so cool for a comic book nerd.
well, a
Um,
lot of people have that. They have boxes that they want to check off. Take George Perez, for example. George
I
Perez.
was just thinking, George. Yes.
Yeah, George Perez had the ambition of drawing every character in comics at some point, and he made quite a bit of progress on it. He actually did some work with us, right? He got to draw some of the characters that you see in the background up here. Yeah.
Oh, yes, there they are.
Yeah.
We went
So
meta.
George
Um,
did George did get a shot at some of those.
He did Southern Nights. The covers for those, right? The crossover between.
Yeah, George did some of the covers. He also did the cover for our Champions Classics reprint book. Um, so I seem to
Uh,
have lost some illumination here. I shouldn't have fiddled with that camera. Oh well, we'll
that's
make do.
it's just assume it's you're working heel, as we say in the wrestling business.
Yeah.
You're being a
So
bad. Oh, and then I've written a lot for Image Comics, for Big Bang Comics. That they parted ways with Image a while ago, but Big Bang is this retro line. I haven't done anything with them super recently, but I've pretty pretty substantial body of work. Oh,
I'm back. Sorry.
okay, that was you did
That
your own
was
little.
that was a glitch. I was looking for some sort of illumination control and hit the wrong button.
Oh, it was like a Shazam moment there.
Yeah, pretty
Billy
much.
Batson turned into Billy Batson. That was the only difference. So those things, I'm working on a novel. I've lots of non-comic book stuff.
That seems
Um,
better.
I'm
Mm,
doing,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe. I don't
How
know.
about
Losing the top of my head. There. Okay. How's that? Sorry,
okay,
I interrupted your train of thought. Go ahead.
okay. Just no. Hold your breath. No sneezing. Nothing like that. Just don't. Everything's cool. Oh, but I do lots of other writing. I do freelance all day, all the time. And it's like I've been doing a lot of technical writing and things like that. And it's just you can't promote it, you can't publicize it. You're just contributing to this,
Sure.
and it pays well, and that's nice, but it's not particularly. My muses are all starving to death while while I don't starve to death. I guess
Well,
put
you
it
have
that
a
way.
lot of characters that you love. Do you have a favorite character? I mean, you alluded to Superman. Is that still true?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna challenge the same gods that you just defied. Here's a I refer. We're in my writing office right now.
You
I
get better
call it
illumination from that angle.
the Fortress of Solitude. I usually don't like working other people's gimmicks, but yes,
Ah,
here it's
so it's
all.
still Superman.
It's all. It's kind of came back to Superman. There was a phase when I thought what he stood for, well, like a lot of people do, as kind of oops, there we go, kind of hokey, and now I admire that. I admire the fact. Oh, I can. While we're at it, there's another one. But to me, I just in this messed up world of ours, it seems like you can't root for anybody. Everyone seems like a bad guy. The idea,
That's always been true.
it's
Um,
always true. That's true. But the idea of it. Well, we've all heard that phrase. Lord Acton actually
yeah,
quoted, "Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts."
not exactly
Absolute.
the quote, but that's the way it's normally said. It's
What's the
power
exact quote?
tends to corrupt, right?
Oh,
And
okay,
absolute power corrupts absolutely.
okay.
That's what he actually said.
I see. You and I.
The okay, let's go to Heroic Publishing for just a second because I'm going to toot my own horn here. Do you have a favorite character of ours?
Oh God. Um, yes. I mean, I think they're all so interesting. When I first approached you, I had I was a very young man, more than a little cocky, maybe putting on a little bit more.
I remember that cocky young man.
And it was Ice Star is the one who just really resonated with me. I felt like he was the one I had the most in common with.
Oh,
Flair, there's so much to Flair that she has such an interesting origin and her powers. Her powers aren't, you know, they force a writer and an artist to be a little more creative, which
yes, yeah, that's
I
true.
challenge. And I go on. I honestly, they're all just like my coolest.
Okay, stop. That's I only asked you for one. You gave me two.
Ice
So
Star, Ice Star.
yeah, let's do this, right? I want to keep these like 30, 40 minutes long. Where
Correct.
can people find you? You have a Facebook page, give that address. Do you have other places people go to find out what you're up to, what you're doing?
www.facebook.com/the spider baby, all one word. Twitter.com/the spider baby, because I am a marketing genius, Dennis. We'll just leave it at that.
Yes, it is straightforward and easy to remember.
Yes,
The Spider Baby.
please.
Okay. All right. Um, Upcoming things. We're getting short on our allotted 30 to 40 minutes here, but any upcoming things that people should be looking at, and then we will call it an evening and give you thanks for being here.
I appreciate the opportunity. Honestly, it's all just boring stuff that I can't promote. Anyway, I don't. I'm talking to DC on two different projects, but nothing I could possibly promote here. So you'll just have to
Keep
publish.
tuned. Visit your Facebook page and your what
Please
was the other
do.
one?
I, I'm yeah, Facebook and Twitter, or X as it's known now, but I just tested it before we came on. Twitter.com/the spider baby works.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that. I hope everyone will keep up with heroic publishing as I do. I'm always excited when new stuff comes out.
So
You are my
rarely these days, just don't have the resources, but we're still plugging along.
you are my favorite. You're my first publisher and my first editor, and I love that you're still editing my quotes and things like that. It's I never want you to stop. You will always have a very special place in my heart. You and Heroic Publishing,
For you too,
and
Terrance, because you actually helped us bring the G Girl to life with that story.
I think all the credit goes to you. I'm very glad if that's the case, but you made her so vibrant and so realistic to me that I could hardly have swerved wrongly.
This is the cover, in case people are wondering that your follow-up story appeared, and I didn't actually show it. It occurs to me I should. Right, it's the very first issue of her own comic book.
That's right.
So, okay. Then thank you for being here. We do it again sometime. As I said, I want to get to some of those stories you wrote that we've never done because there were a lot of good ones in there that I just haven't been able to get to. So,
Thanks.
yeah. So I'm going to call any last word before I shut this off.
Um, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you again, Terrance. Going off.